This beam is 8 centuries old. It should be weaker. It isn't. In some medieval roofs, the joints are tighter now than when the frame first went up. Not looser, tighter. Meanwhile, modern lumber can twist before the paint even dries. So what did medieval builders understand about wood that we abandoned? Why were they obsessed with winter, slope, moisture, and even the moon? The answer begins before the first cut, long before the beam, long before the building. It begins with a forester looking at a tree and already seeing a structure inside it. Medieval woodsmen did not walk into a forest looking for enough wood. They looked for the right tree for the right task. Before the axe came out, they studied everything. Bark, branch angle, crown shape, the way the trunk rose from the ground, because a twisted tree usually meant twisted grain, and twisted grain inside a long beam meant stress, weakness, and hidden failure waiting under load. They also listened. A few knocks on the trunk could reveal more than you might think. A clean, lively ring suggested dense, healthy timber. A dull, dead sound hinted at hollows, rot, or weakness buried inside. It sounds simple, almost primitive. But if you get that wrong, the problem does not show itself today. It shows itself decades later, in a sagging roof, a shifting frame, a collapse no one saw coming. And then there was location. Trees from colder slopes or shaded ground often grew more slowly. That usually meant tighter growth rings. And tighter rings often meant denser, more stable wood. A fast-grown tree could look bigger, taller, more impressive. But medieval builders were not impressed by appearance. They cared about behavior. They were not buying wood for size. They were choosing wood for what it would do under pressure. They were suspicious of damaged trees too. A lightning strike, a fire scar, a deep wound in the bark, a trunk that had survived some obvious trauma. Because a tree can survive damage and still hide stress deep inside. The outside may look usable. The inside may already be compromised. That kind of mistake is dangerous precisely because it stays invisible, until one day it isn't. So the first secret was brutally simple. They did not buy wood by dimension. They selected living trees like the future structure was already trapped inside them, and once they had the right tree, timing became everything. This is where the story starts to sound strange. Many medieval builders preferred specific felling windows, especially in winter. And in some traditions, they even linked it to the waning moon. That sounds like superstition, and some of it probably was tradition. But behind the belief was a serious practical idea. Cut the tree when it is carrying less active moisture, and the timber may dry more calmly from the very beginning. Guild traditions in parts of Europe treated timing seriously. Winter mattered because dormant trees were believed to hold less active sap in the trunk. And later tests suggested there may have been something to that. Timber cut during lower sap periods could begin with slightly reduced moisture content. That difference sounds small, but wood remembers stress, and a small advantage at the beginning can become a major advantage years later, because stability is not built in a day, it is accumulated. Then comes the part that feels completely backward to modern builders. Many medieval carpenters actually wanted green wood, fresh timber, newly felled oak. Why? Because green oak works beautifully under hand tools. It cuts cleaner, it shapes faster. Mortises, tenons, housings, everything is easier when the wood still gives a little, instead of fighting every cut. And that sounds like a shortcut, but it wasn't. It was only brilliant because they understood what would happen next. Wood shrinks as it dries, but it does not shrink evenly. It moves more across the grain than along its length. And medieval joiners knew how to use that. Cut the joint correctly. Drive in a dry peg. Let the beam dry slowly. And time starts doing the tightening for you. That is why some medieval joints feel almost welded together today. Not because of secret glue, not because of magic, because the frame was designed to grow tighter with age. That is the part modern people often miss. These buildings did not merely survive time, they used time as a tool. The wood moved, the joints responded, the frame compressed into itself. And century after century, what should have loosened often became harder to pull apart. Then came the waiting. Proper air drying was slow, painfully slow. A large oak beam could sit for years before final use, sometimes much longer. Some major projects stockpiled timber so far ahead of time that the people choosing the trees were not even the people who would raise the roof. That is not just craftsmanship. That is patience on a scale modern building rarely tolerates. Slow drying let the wood settle gradually. Fewer internal stresses, fewer cracks, fewer hidden weaknesses waiting for moisture, insects, or winter frost to exploit later. Kiln drying is fast, efficient, predictable. But fast is not the same as gentle, and medieval builders were often willing to accept delay in exchange for long-term calm inside the timber. So by now, they had already stacked the odds in their favor. The right tree, the right season, the right moisture, the right drying pace. But they were still not finished. Not every wood species was asked to do the same job. Oak carried the heavy loads, posts, major beams, compression work. It was strong, durable, and rich in tannins that helped resist insects and decay. Elm had a different talent. Its interlocked grain made it difficult to split, stubborn under stress, and useful in wet conditions, including wells and water-related structures. Chestnut was valued in many regions because it handled decay well and came with its own chemical defenses. Ash could absorb repeated shock without snapping, which made it ideal for handles, shafts, and parts expected to take impact. And yew was famous for a reason. In a bow stave, heartwood and sapwood could do opposite jobs at once. One resisting compression, the other tolerating tension. Medieval builders were not just using wood. They were assigning roles. Their preservation methods could get strange. Some timber was soaked in running water to leach out sugars and starches that fungi and insects love. Some surfaces were lightly charred to create a carbonized skin. Exposed end grain might be sealed with oil. And some traditions used ammonia-rich organic treatments that sound disgusting now, but were trying to solve the same problem. Make the wood harder to eat, harder to soak, harder to rot. But even that was not enough if the building trapped moisture. And this may be the lesson modern construction forgets most often. Many medieval timber buildings were designed to breathe. Deep roof overhangs pushed rain away from walls. Stone plinths lifted timber off damp ground. Openings encouraged airflow. Frames were detailed with the expectation that wood would sometimes get wet. Because getting wet is not always what destroys wood. Staying wet does. That one idea changes everything. A piece of timber can survive weather. It can survive seasons. It can survive centuries. But constant trapped moisture will kill it far faster than age ever will. And medieval builders understood that. They also used fewer iron fasteners than many modern systems. That mattered, because iron creates problems of its own. Rust expands. Expansion splits fibers. And every metal penetration can become a path for moisture. So timber framers relied heavily on wooden pegs, often drier than the beams they locked together. As humidity changed, those pegs swelled and tightened the frame even further. Their joints were just as intelligent. Scarf joints did not simply connect two pieces end to end. They were shaped to resist force, to grip under load, to move without immediately failing. In some frames, extra weight actually improved the lock. No glue, very little metal, just geometry, moisture, pressure, and time working together. That slight flexibility also helped old timber buildings survive movement that would crack more rigid systems. And they knew a tree was not one uniform material. Sapwood and heartwood do not perform the same. Heartwood holds far more of the tree's natural chemical defenses. Sapwood is usually wetter, more attractive to insects, and less durable over time. That is why serious structural work often meant stripping sapwood away, even though it reduced the usable yield. That is a painful decision if your goal is efficiency. But if your goal is longevity, it makes perfect sense. And then there was something even more important than technique: accountability. A master carpenter's reputation traveled with the frame. Methods were passed down through guild traditions. Workmanship was personal. In some places, builders were effectively standing behind what they made for decades. That changes everything. It changes how carefully you choose the tree, how much extra margin you leave, how precisely you cut the joint, and whether you are building for a quick handoff or for your grandson to maintain. That may be the part we really forgot. Not just the tools, not just the drying, not just the joinery, the time horizon. Medieval builders often oversized members, expected repair, and assumed the structure should outlive them. Modern construction is extraordinary at speed, scale, and standardization. But when it comes to wood, we often treat a living material like a disposable product, and wood has never behaved like a disposable product. So no, medieval builders were not wizards. They were patient. They watched trees before they cut them. They understood moisture before they trapped it. They matched species to the job. They let wood move. They let buildings breathe. And they used time itself as part of the design. That is why some of their structures are still standing over our heads after hundreds and hundreds of years. We did not just forget how to build with wood. We forgot how far into the future wood can be asked to work. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe for more.